We start with the South African market that's awaiting the latest quarterly labour force survey. It will be highlighting one of the country's biggest concerns being unemployment. Analysts are not optimistic this time around that the first quarter survey will see a continued decline on the country's overall national unemployment rate. In the previous 2 quarters, the rate dropped consecutively to 32.7%, which remains too high and reflects South Africa's history of inequality when it comes to opportunities. Analysts also say that the first quarter reading differs due to the heightened level of rolling blackouts, as well as the harsh impact on businesses and the broader economy. Chief Communications Officer at Harambee Youth Accelerator, Zengeziwe Msimang, speaks to us now to expand on what's expected this time around. Thank you so much for your time, Zengeziwe. We know that youth unemployment remains quite high in South Africa to levels that are historic, but we've seen those declines in the overall unemployment rate in South Africa. Is that even good enough and an expectation at this particular reading of the Q1 quarterly labour force survey?
Hi, Msimang. I think that we're looking at a pretty bleak time. I mean, in terms of what we've seen with load shedding, we're looking at one day in this past quarter where we have not had load shedding, and that obviously has a massive impact on unemployment and on the private sector's ability to create jobs. And so, to be honest, we're not thinking that it's going to be looking good. We really have seen a decline in the last quarter, and that was approximately 83,000 jobs were created, which is wonderful. But looking at what we've seen with load shedding, looking at what we've seen with the stagnant economic growth, in high inflation rates, and a myriad of challenges that we're facing as a country, to be honest, we're not expecting an increase in terms of job creation in this quarter.
There's also something to be said about the sustainability of jobs that exist within the South African labour landscape. As indicated in the fourth quarter, those numbers saw an improvement because they were defined as seasonal jobs due to the retail sector. This time around with load shedding, there are even bigger concerns of job losses, not only in the seasonal job sector cycles, but in industries that are historically known in this country for being the largest job absorbers, particularly of unskilled workers. Where's the concern level on that front?
Well, I think that it's twofold. One is that we have seen that seasonal jobs, we've seen an uptick because of seasonal jobs in the last quarter. But I do think that looking at the tourism sector specifically, we're not going to see that because the seasonal December period is over. I do think that it's important for us to also look at the scale and the size of the challenge and look at how we almost perceive jobs in terms of what we've learned at Harambee is that even with seasonal jobs, young people particularly need to pathway into opportunities. And so every opportunity really does make a difference. So if we see short-term jobs or we're looking at longer-term jobs, at this time, given the scale and the size of the problem, every job makes a difference, and it really does enable young people to see a path and a future as contributors to our economy.
Now, unfortunately, Zengeziwe, the current economic climate is not conducive to creating jobs because of economic growth. And like you said, the impact of load shedding on the broader economy as well as private businesses that are finding it quite difficult to take on new entrants. So there's a new layer of barriers to entry. Are there opportunities that even exist even in these tough economic times?
There are opportunities that exist, and what we call them is sunrise sectors. And what we've seen in the last quarter was that there was a bounce back with regards to financial services. And we've mapped out and seen that if we are to really come together and pull the correct levers, there are definitely sectors that have opportunities. One of them is the GBS, Global Business Services and Digital Jobs. And that's where in the financial sector we saw a bit of a bounce back last quarter. Another one is agriculture. And again, Msimang, we're talking now before these stats come out. And we have identified that there's a huge amount of opportunity within the agri sector. However, looking at the impact of load shedding now, we're going to have to wait to see what those statistics really show us, because we have seen supply chains really getting disturbed and disrupted as a result of load shedding. We saw Gareth Ackerman recently talking about food instability or the potential of food instability as a result of load shedding. So we really are on tenterhooks in terms of the real impact that we're going to see at 11:30 of what these stats are saying from a youth employment perspective. But there are definitely sectors within our economy that are still showing growth and that still have opportunities. I think another one is looking at home-based care. We've identified that there's growth opportunities within those sectors. And again, it is really about looking at what is the economic impact at this time with the stats that are coming out now. But there's definitely places of opportunity, and I think there's definitely things that employers, that individuals can do. I mean, when we're looking at a problem of this scale, it really is, the clarion call is, we have to look at reducing those barriers. We have to ensure that we employ inclusively. We have to look at the kind of applications that we put out. Are we putting barriers in just from the get-go? Are young people going to be able to apply for these jobs? So I think there definitely is, there's work that needs to be done, and there is almost an onus upon those who are able to employ and those within both the private sector and government to really look at how we hire inclusively and how we make sure that we reduce those barriers.
A number of dynamics at play there. Zengeziwe Msimang is with the Harambee Institute. They're representing the youth sector in South Africa as we preview what's expected from Stats SA at around 11:30 this morning in terms of the latest jobs numbers.